Okay, then let me make the formal welcome to you, uh, Rebecca. This is a series of talks we are planning in the department for our students and faculty who can come together and debate the issues concerning the world economy. And I found it right in inviting you so that this the Chinese emergence in the technological world is something people are talking about. So happy for joining us today and addressing us. In order to make the inaugural address, let me uh, invite Dr. Chako Josby, our principal, St. Aloysius College. Please take over.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Lebabon, Dr. Giselle Mann, Professor, Business School, Holy Spirit University, Lebanon, Ms. Regida, Head of the Department of Commerce, St. Aloysius College, Rebecca Finn, leading expert on global innovations, and today's guest speaker, other participants of this conference, of this invited talk, and dear students. I'm extremely happy that the Department of Commerce of St. Aloysius College is organizing a special invited talk in collaboration with the Business School, Holy Spirit University of Lebanon. Such expositions for our students will certainly add value to the degree program and the other courses that they are doing. Today, we have a very interesting topic for today's lecture. It's titled, What is Next in the Ever-Changing World of Innovations? As a faculty from the Department of Economics, I have a feeling that when innovations stop, the world will stop. So for the world to move forward, we should continuously have innovations, whether it be product innovations or process innovations. And I understand that today, Rebecca will be speaking on the emergence of China as an innovator in a technology field. When we look from the point of view of India, it's both a point of concern and also a point of challenge. It's a point of concern because most of the electronic gadgets that we get in India are manufactured in China. And it's a challenge because why a country like India cannot compete with China in making such gadgets. I remember reading an article maybe 15 years back in the leading journal, The Economist, where they compared India as an elephant and China as a tiger. And they even made a prediction that the tiger moves very swiftly, whereas the elephant moves very slowly. So ultimately, they were trying to predict that India will be able to match China in all sort of innovations. That was 15 years back. Now the picture is more clear, and we do not know in which direction this competition of innovation is moving up. And probably today, our guest speaker, Rebecca, will give you more light on what is going to happen in this ever-changing world of innovations. So I don't want to be in between the speaker and you, so I will not be taking more of your time. But I would like to congratulate the Department of Commerce for taking up this venture, and I hope the Business School of Holy Spirit University, Lebanon, will continue to cooperate with our Department of Commerce in more collaborative programs. I hope the students who are the primary beneficiary of this program, who are attending this program, will listen to the speech and will interact with the resource person, will make use of this rare opportunity. It's a rare opportunity for you to interact with one of the most celebrated speakers in the world. So I hope you will use this opportunity. So I wish all the very best to this for this program, and I would like to thank the Department of Commerce for giving me this opportunity, and I'm happy to declare that the event is inaugurated. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Rebecca, can you make me co-host so that I can accept participants? I made you host and I lost the privilege in the process.
You made me host. Okay. Let's see. I see 32 people have entered the waiting room. Let's see.
Yeah, so that we have to accept all. You just make me co-host so that I can.
I'm looking on the screen. Let's see. Internal mic, audio, that's not it. Under more, board on this stoplight. I don't see how I have the option to do that. Security, let's look under security. Enable waiting room. I think I would have to sign out in order to change the hosting.
No, you be the host, let me be the co-host. In the more option, you would see that option.
In the remote option, okay.
In the more tab, there is more, and in that tab you
I'm under more. I
co-host.
see lock meeting, enable waiting room, hide profile pictures, allow participants to share screen, chat, unmute, start video, remove. I don't see a place there for changing the hosting, unfortunately. Under more.
If you would see, and there is motion.
Would you want me to allow these people to come in, the 34 people that are in the waiting room? Chat. Okay. Do you want me to just go ahead or allow these people to come into the that are waiting? Should we?
Okay, great.
Did you fix it?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, good. All right, that's great. Can we let these 31 people who are in the waiting room enter?
Yeah, I will admit them. In the meantime, okay. I would request Giselle to come in and speak few words. Dr. Giselle, can you hear me?
It's great that you have so many participants. That's really wonderful.
Yeah, we have. Hi, Jobin, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, sir.
Yeah, so we have just started the program.
Okay.
And if you could introduce the speaker, that would be great, and we move to the session.
Okay. Hey, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for everyone joining. This is an organized event that relates to the future belongs to Asia, in particular Chinese emergence and all. And we're blessed to be more informed of this topic throughout the session. And we have a very esteemed guest giving her insight, giving her talk about this topic. Her name is Rebecca A. Fannin, and she is a leading expert on global innovation, an international business journalist, media entrepreneur, and author. Her journalistic career has taken her to the world's leading hubs of tech entrepreneurship. Her forward-looking books, namely Tech Titans of China, Startup Asia, and Silicon Dragon, have explored how a new Silicon Valley is emerging in the East, and have covered many innovative leaders, including ByteDance, Grab, OLA, Alibaba, Baidu, and others, many others. And Mrs. Fannin began her career in New York City and later in Silicon Valley, where she followed the venture capital trail and became one of the first American journalists to write about the entrepreneurial boom in China, reporting from Beijing, Shanghai, and Hong Kong. Her articles have appeared in the Harvard Business Review, Fast Company Inc., Wired, Red Herring, and CNBC, where she is a special correspondent, as well as Forbes as a columnist for 10 years. She also has authored and co-authored several thought leadership papers. Inspired by the entrepreneurs she has met and profiled, such as Jack Ma, Rebecca became an entrepreneur herself. In 2010, she launched media and events platform Silicon Dragon Ventures, which publishes an e-newsletter, produces an online show, runs a membership group, and programs events in hotspots globally. Rebecca is a frequent speaker at major business, policy, and tech forums, and is often called on for commentary in major media, including CNBC and Bloomberg TV, and to provide expert testimony. Rebecca Fannin currently resides in San Francisco and New York City, and has logged major miles in her grassroots search to cover the next, newest, and biggest thing. So warm welcome to Mrs. Rebecca Fannin.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I really appreciate all these participants today. This is a good turnout. So hello, everyone. I'm Rebecca Mcfadden, and I'm a journalist and a book author, and I've spent a lot of time in Asia. At one point, I think I was more in Asia than the US. I spent a lot of time between San Francisco and New York, documenting what's happening in the tech innovation world, but also overseas over the last 15 to 20 years. Many trips to China, I think 100, maybe about 6 trips to India over the years. Many trips to Singapore, Vietnam, Indonesia, Australia, you name it, I've been there. So a lot of frequent flyer miles and a lot of experience as well. Beyond all the interviews I've done, I've also held events in many of these locations. I'm remembering very well an event that I held in Bangalore. And that was really quite exciting. We had the founder of Ola speaking. And back then, Ola, who knew that it was going to become, a big company then? But the same trend I've witnessed in China over the years. When I first started covering China, very few people in Silicon Valley ever predicted that China would become a leading tech player, and it has become that. And I think we've seen this in only about 15 years. I like to be ahead of the game. I like to always be forward thinking, and my curiosity has taken me to lots of places where I've interviewed people and been able to stay ahead of the trends. So I think I still am doing that. I documented China's rise early on, and I forecast that India would be next. And I think we're starting to see that in a big way. So I think we're seeing the spread of Silicon Valley, the decentralization of Silicon Valley, not just in the US, but globally. And I think that this is a really important trend. So I'd like to share a few slides with you based upon some of my work, and hopefully we'll have a lot of time also for Q&A. And I'd like to just keep this casual and moving. All right. So can you see my slides there?
Yes, yes.
Okay, good. 2021. Tech Titans of China came out in 2019, and we did not predict that this might happen, because back in 2008, which is not that long ago, when my first book was published, Silicon Dragon, the idea of China as an innovator was considered a ridiculous idea. And there are people like Jack Ma of Alibaba that I interviewed in Shanghai and Hong Kong, that people really didn't know who he was then. But they certainly do now, although Jack Ma has become quieter in the past year. So this is a very fast-moving story. So as you can see, some of this started in about 2008. It really picked up. That was a peak time, 2008, and then there was a burst of activity. And then we've seen some cycles of up and down since then, but the overall trajectory is up. And so we are continuing to see the rise of China and Asian tech companies. So that's the big change. It was really just China, right? China is the rival to Silicon Valley. But today it is many companies that have sprung up throughout Asia. So in the beginning, I interviewed Robin Lee of Baidu, there he is, and Tony Ma of Tencent. These are all pictures that I took, and then Joe Zhang from Alibaba. These are some of the leaders, the FANGs, right? China's bot, which is Baidu, Alibaba, Tencent. Those were the beginnings, and that was like the equivalent of the FANGs in the US. FANGs is Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Google, and these companies in China became some of the 10 most valuable publicly traded companies. Then we saw a new wave after the Baidu, Alibaba, Tencent. Already this fast-moving needle became some newcomers, such as ByteDance with TikTok, which is a global company. It's globally known now. DB, the Uber of China, right? And Meituan, food delivery company that has sprung up from China. So these were known as the TMD, TikTok, Didi, and Meituan. This is the second generation of Chinese tech up-and-comers. And what we have seen is China innovating a lot faster and progressing globally and working harder. So these three things, innovating faster, going global, working harder, have definitely propelled China's tech boom. And what we have seen is from copy to China to copy from China, right? So the idea of these tech business models that emerged from China, they're now being copied. So for instance, Facebook has copied WeChat. Amazon has copied Alibaba. Starbucks has copied Luckin Coffee. Line Bike, the ride sharing, copied Mobike and Ofo in China. So we've also seen the going global trend. TikTok, Xiaomi, the smartphone maker, DJI, the drone maker. And of course, we know all about the working harder culture of China, the 996. 996 refers to 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 days a week. But from my experience being in China, I think it's even more than that, more time in the office than that. There's been some pushback to this idea now of the 996 entrepreneurial culture, but a few years ago, that was definitely going strong. So what have been the major catalysts for China's tech boom? It's originated from the government priority of Internet Plus, the Belt and Road, the Made in China 2025, the enormous engineering talent that China has, the capital, the venture capital, the infrastructure, the high-speed trains, the internet, the mobile, all of these things have contributed to China's tech boom. We've seen China come up as a consumer market. This has been one of the real drivers of the tech innovation in digital and in mobile. So China has the world's largest mobile population and the largest internet population. So these have all been contributors to China's rise. Another factor is that China, because it was behind before, it was able to leapfrog into these new areas so much faster. For instance, the US has a lot of legacy, and and other countries too have a lot of legacy systems that they have to get rid of, right? Or change somehow. But China was starting from scratch, so they could innovate on mobile payments. They could innovate with email and come up with WeChat. They could innovate with super apps. Super apps is an idea that originated in China, and it's also gone global. Business cards, instead of business cards, paper business cards, it's all QR codes. Instead of gas engines, electric vehicles. Instead of shopping malls, these dinosaur shopping malls that today we see in America that are not in great shape because they're old, from 1960s. Today we see in China the new retail mini shops online, social commerce online. TV has migrated to live streaming and 15-second video apps. All of this happened very fast and happened partly because China leapfrogged. We know that China also has this, I mentioned the infrastructure, but just to point it out here, the high-speed trains, the longest sea bridge, the airports are all brand new, the skyscrapers all brand new, and it makes even New York look out of date. It really does. What are some of these areas that China has come up fast in? In terms of tech sectors, I would point to 5G, artificial intelligence, robots, biotech, space exploration, the sharing economy, facial recognition, social credit, new retail, mobile payment. These are all areas where China has innovated in, but there are certain areas that are deep tech that China has not really emerged as a leader in, and those areas would be semiconductors and aerospace. So semiconductors in a big way, as we've seen play out in some of the tensions going on with US and China over China's rise. Just to point out a few photos here, that's me at Alibaba's e-commerce store, or their shopping store, where everything is handled by robots and QR codes. You don't see very many staff people there. And here on the right-hand side is the facial recognition, the security systems in China, where in AI, where things are documented by camera. So you see a lot of these kinds of cameras around at many intersections. So, okay, so China got ahead in many of these areas, but did they have an unfair advantage? It could be argued that China had very little competition from the West. Google, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all blocked in China, right? So China developed its own. And giving China credit, in some cases, China out-innovated the US. For instance, Baidu beat Google. That's a very big triumph on their part. I think WeChat beat Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all three. So you could also say, well, you know, China was just copying. There's a lack of respect for IP. There's forced technology transfers. There's all this government spending behind it. Yeah, that's true. But my feeling is that, and my premise is that China has its own innate technology and ingenuity. It is a very inventive country. You see lots of new ideas come from China. It's not just a matter of copying and learning from Silicon Valley. It might have been in the beginning, but that definitely changed over the past decade and a half. So here I mentioned that a lot of the Western companies, not only were they blocked in China, but they failed on their own regard, right? So Uber, Didi won that battle. In the ride-sharing market, Didi, the Chinese company, won. In the e-commerce market, Alibaba won over eBay. In search engines, Baidu won over Google. In social media, WeChat won over LinkedIn. And then I predicted that more could fail in China, such as WeWork and possibly Starbucks. But because they have such strong competitors, they have local rivals like UCommune and Luckin Coffee, which actually Starbucks copied the Luckin Coffee model of fast delivery. So very interesting. So today, I think we have these two superpowers in a tech race, and we are seeing a US-China tech Cold War. And we're seeing it play out in Washington, D.C. and Beijing almost every day, and in Silicon Valleys around the world. The US is pushing back against China, feels threatened, is threatened. There have been blocks placed on sales to Chinese companies. There's been blocks on listings of companies in the US. There's been increased regulations on venture capital investments. This is all from the US side of the US saying, okay, we got to stop this China rival. Let's stop. And it's not the first time that the US has felt threatened in this way. If you look back at the 1990s, it was Japan. It wasn't China then, it was Japan. And the Japanese were buying up our trophy properties like Rockefeller Center and Pebble Beach. So some of you may remember those days. What I find really interesting is that the same types of tech sectors that emerged in China then emerged in India, Indonesia, Vietnam, other markets in Asia. So for instance, ride sharing, and these are, I think, some of the leading tech sectors: ride sharing, at least on the consumer side, mobile commerce, food delivery, fintech, travel, publishing, social media, outsourcing, of course, was in India, a brand, right? But you could say that outsourcing has moved globally as well. So Cleantech is another area that I think has gone throughout Asia as a big theme. Was originally kind of US, Europe oriented kind of thing. And then China got into it now as Asia-wide. Group buying, another kind of phenomena that's happened Asia-wide. So just to go back a minute and make the case for why China has risen so fast, if you look at the patents, if you look at the R&D spending, the venture capital investments, the venture capital funds, the unicorns, the IPOs, all of these are indicators of China's rise. And I have this all documented in my books, so I won't go into too much detail about it here, but you could see that it is always, almost always, US first, China second. And now I would argue, and I think we're seeing the numbers coming out, that India is on the rise as the third, right? And I predicted that in my book, Startup Asia, right? Startup Asia, again, was really early. Startup Asia, nobody believed that, right? But now we're seeing with these companies coming out of India and going global and going public and attracting a lot of venture capital investment. We're seeing India on the rise in a maybe not in such an elephant way, but maybe even popping a little bit of the tiger. So it's been interesting to cover this from a venture capital angle. So this graphic here dates back to when Sand Hill Road is next to Stanford University in Silicon Valley, and it's where the venture capital firms, most of them are headquartered. So venture capital woke up to the potential of Asia, and this dragon boat, these dragon boats show the leading VCs of the day going to Asia and checking it out. They went to India and China both at the same time, and they came back and they set up funds and they started investing in both markets. Now China came on fast and strong ahead of India, but now I think India is in a catch-up mode. So some of the people that have been leaders in this whole venture capital to Asia are people like Neil Shen of Sequoia Capital China, and I've interviewed Neil, and also Hans Tong of TGV Capital and Gary Rochelle of Qiming. And also from India's side, I interviewed the leading India venture capitalists as well in my book, Startup Asia. But many of these venture capitalists, the point I'm trying to make here is that many of these venture capitalists, even though it was considered kind of risky and to invest in Asia, many of them became among the top performers on the Forbes Midas list. And so that is a real proof that, yes, investing in Asia has worked. It's created a lot of unicorns. One of the unicorns here, I've interviewed him as well, is the founder of, not Mcfadden, but the mobile phone company, and the leading mobile phone company. Now, I also interviewed some that didn't make it, actually. So that's me below interviewing the founder of OFO. I don't know how many of you remember when the bike sharing craze was so hot. So back then, that's one sector that really did not materialize. And despite tremendous amount of money that went into it. So that's the founder of OFO here, but unfortunately, OFO is no more. So there are a few, victims out there of when you have too much money chasing not enough innovation. As I mentioned before, the IPO scene was very active with China emerging very fast with many companies on NASDAQ. India has come up on that as well, not only within India, of course, but on NASDAQ now too. So Hong Kong has participated in this as well with Xiaomi, the leading smartphone maker from China. Xiaomi went public in Hong Kong, and Meituan, the leading food delivery company, went public in Hong Kong, and they got huge valuations. So 4 of the top 10 US IPOs were from China in 2018. Now, what's happened since then, and I forecast this in that what could go wrong, right? And I didn't really realize that so much could go wrong with China's tech boom, as we've seen. What's been happening is this tech Cold War and the pushback against China's rise. So we've seen a lot of barriers put up, a lot of limitations put up on China's rise. And we've seen, even in the consumer market, a distrust of Chinese brands, a ban on sales of Chinese products, security concerns, all of these things, all of these contributors have slowed China's tech rise. But on the other hand, I think we have seen that China is very determined to get ahead, very ambitiously wanting to become the #1 tech innovator in the world. So I do think in spite of all of these restrictions now, and the slowdown in IPOs from China and the slowdown of investment in China from the US, I still think that there's tremendous momentum for China. At the same time, I think, and I mentioned this even in my book, Tech Titans of China, that I could see that there was a pivot to Southeast Asia, right? I'll just hold up my book here, Tech Titans of China, but maybe I should have titled it Tech Titans of Asia, but anyhow, that could be a next one. But so then I talked about how the same models that happened in China happened in other places. For instance, Gojek in Indonesia, Ola in India, Grab in Singapore, and the same types of venture capitalists were also investing not only in China, but also in India. And they set up separate funds. And so we have seen actually a pivot away from China by the Silicon Valley players toward other markets in Southeast Asia, because China has become such a political field that it's considered risky, maybe not a good place to place your money at this moment. There's also a pivot to Israel at the same time, a pivot to Israel. We saw Israel and China becoming stronger linked because there were a lot of parallels. Israel's also very strong in tech. Israel needed China's market, and China needed some of Israel's know-how in, for instance, security systems and R&D. So this has been an interesting phenomena, and we've seen Chinese capital going to Israeli venture firms. So both the US and China are very interested in Israel because it's such a strong tech market. But what all this is pointing to is what's been called the splinter net of a dual universe in the tech world, in the internet world, where you have two separate spheres, a US sphere and a China sphere. And that's already happening, where China has blocked, some foreign brands and some foreign content already. So in a way, you say this splinter net has been developing for some time, but now it's developing along the lines of 5G, and we saw the split on the venture capital side. So I think that this splinter net is going to impact China's rise, because China has looked to the US for certain technologies, and now can no longer do that so readily. And so China has become more reliant on its own strengths and is building up from that, while this splinter net continues to split. So as I mentioned, there are many of these sectors that are impacted. These are just a few that I would point out here that I mentioned in the book and went into detail about in the book, like 5G and robotics, drones, facial recognition. These are all areas where China has moved ahead very aggressively in, and fintech and artificial intelligence, the sharing economy. These are all areas where China has really come on strong. So I did mention before the pushback. We've seen a lot of foreign direct investment, venture capital, both have plunged, China to US, US to China. And I think I could go on to more detail of particular companies, like for instance here, the XPeng, kind of the China Tesla, XPeng. They raised a lot of money, they went public, but that's the founder, who I actually interviewed in Silicon Valley. That's one of the companies that has emerged more strongly in recent days. And Of course, e-commerce is another area where we've seen Pinduoduo invent a new business model with the peer-to-peer and group buying, and also very popular in rural areas. So these are more details about some of the companies that are highlighted in all my research. So let me just quote a few experts here who have been around. For instance, Kaiku Lee at Sinovation Ventures. There's me with Kaiku right there. China's gone from mere copycats to sheer global domination in AI. David Chow, who's a venture capitalist at BCM in Silicon Valley, he's always told me he thinks the next Steve Jobs will come from China. But maybe since they're also investing, BCM is also investing in Japan and elsewhere in Asia, it could just as well come from another market besides China. Jerry Yang, the co-founder of Yahoo, told me way back when it will only be 1 decade before China rivals the West for tech leadership. How right he was. And my interviews with these people have presented their ideas to the world. So next, I think we're just grappling is what is the response from the West? What is the next tech market? Will these tech and trade conflicts be resolved? So I would encourage you to follow along and follow the story. Here on my website, silicondragonventures.com, you can see all of our events. We do a weekly show called Ask a VC, where we highlight a global VC and talk about their strategy and their profile and what's working for them. So I would encourage you to go to silicondragonventures.com and check out the schedule there. And look, I welcome any questions you may have, and it's been a real privilege to present to you, and hope you enjoyed it.
Yes. Thank you so much for your presentation. It was insightful, and we would take some questions from the audience.
Okay.
Before that, let me see whether Dr. Giselle joined us. Can you hear me, Dr. Giselle?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
I'm here.
Yeah, please come over.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks a lot, Ms. Rebecca, for the interesting presentation. You shed the light on really very important elements and concerns that we should be aware of. This is really important. I would like also to thank my students and all the attendees, and to thanks Dr. Lebabon and all the University College to organize this amazing webinar. I just want to ask you also about the about your opinion between the Western companies and how largely they are growing instead of, let's say, the US companies when we are talking about Uber, eBay, Google, and LinkedIn. And thank you again.
So how they are growing in comparison to the Chinese companies?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Well, you know, it's interesting because if you take Uber and Didi, there was a real battle going on in China between those two companies in the ride-sharing space. And eventually what happened is that Didi bought out Uber's business in China and absorbed it basically. So in this case, Didi out-innovated, out-competed the American counterpart. That story, they don't like that story to be told much in the US, but it definitely happened. And so then when Didi kept growing, Didi kept growing, and then Didi went public not that long ago in the US, and that became very controversial. So Didi has been really in the hot seat continues to be in the hot seat. It is the leader in China, and it dominated an American company. This is not the first time that happened. For instance, Alibaba and eBay, same thing. Alibaba outcompeted eBay. eBay basically sold its business and got out of China. After many years, I mean, it wasn't like they didn't try. They tried very hard. But, you know, there's something about being local and being very close to the market and being able to respond quickly and knowing the culture. I think that those factors made a difference in the local companies gaining the advantage.
Thank you for that response. Let me see whether our students have any questions to shoot to you.
Hello. Hello,
Yes.
sir.
Yes, just introduce yourself and raise the question.
Okay. Ma'am. Hello, I am Fenita from St. Aloysius College, Mcfadden student. I have a question to you. Will India be a new force along with China for taking IT leadership in coming decade? What do you think?
Oh yeah, I think we're already seeing that trend developing. We're seeing a lot of venture capital chasing Indian startups that have promising business models. And India has already emerged as the third largest venture capital market. We're seeing a lot of unicorns emerging out of China, out of India now. We're seeing a lot of IPOs. These are all the contributors that made China rise. It's the same thing. It's the same phenomena, but now in India. Maybe it's about a decade behind China, but it is catching up. And I think India has several factors that are in its favor. You don't have, I mean, you have an open, you have a democracy, for instance. You have, you know, a legal system, and all the things in China were for investors coming in from the US. They had to deal with, you know, a whole new political system, a whole new legal system, censorship. These are things that are not factors in India. So I think India's got a good shot at it. Now, one of the things that I noticed in being in India and covering the Indian startups is that there was growing confidence. There is growing confidence among the entrepreneurs there that yes, they can do it. We can do it, and certainly the experience from Silicon Valley has been a major contributor. You have to have mentorship. You have to have heroes, and this is what Silicon Valley has had, and China has had. You have to have people that are inspiration, that you can learn from, that you can copy or invent your own model. But this hero phenomena and the mentorship is extremely important, and the experience is extremely important. And so this capital that's coming into India that's more experienced today, I think is very important. And the talent base is growing as well.
Thank you for the response.
Thank you, ma'am.
Madam, I'm
Yes.
Sneha, a student of St. Aloysius second year BCom Finance. First of all, I would like to thank you for explaining us about the changing world of innovations. The doubt I have is that as I read through the article on tech titans of China, as well as by hearing your class, I was convinced by the fact that China is advancing a lot, and in its product range like phones and mobile phones. But I have heard from my childhood onwards that Chinese products are less in quality and short-lived. Is it still true about Chinese products, or they have advanced more in their quality?
Yes, well, I think that was the reputation of China, made in China products, is that they were cheap, right? cheap and poorly made.
Yes.
Right. But that's not the case. I mean, there are so many companies corporations from around the world that are having components made in China. They could not compete globally if those products were shoddy. There are many companies that say that China is their major source for these components because they can't find those components elsewhere in the world. So I think those days of cheap and poor quality, they're over.
Okay, thank you, Miss.
Any other question? So if any one of you wants to raise any doubts in relation to the presentation, yeah, we have a post in the chat box. So if you can see that, does China take the leverage of its huge population when it comes to battle for the world superpower?
Right. When you're seeing development of technology standards, it does matter the population side. So, and I think that is an important consideration. Yeah, it's not just the huge population overall, but the huge internet population, the huge mobile population, so that when a tech brand grabs hold, it grabs a big market, grabs a big market. And it's not just in China either, because there's a lot of overseas Chinese. For instance, here in the US, WeChat is commonly used among those from China here in the US, or those with any China connection, WeChat. So yeah, this huge population is that I think that's a factor in China's favor in winning a tech war, if you could call it a tech war. I wouldn't call it a tech war quite yet, but it's been a tech conflict.
Okay, and so what I would like to ask in something in relation to this. Does India have edge in this process because we have world's second largest population here?
Yeah. Oh yes, I think so. Yeah. Yes.
And
it matters what is the middle class population. What is the size of the middle class population? Right.
Yes.
That's a leading factor.
And do you see India taking over China over a period of time in tech world?
No, I don't see that. I think the China ambition is
much higher.
Super strong. China's ambition is super strong. So India and China has the government behind it too. They always say in China you succeed because of the government, in India you succeed in spite of the government, right? So yes, yeah, I'm sure you've heard that.
Okay, so already we are 1 hour into the session. Thank you once again for joining us.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. I hope the students benefited.
Yeah, 100%. They were so happy to join and listen to you. And this is the first time they have this kind of exposure to an international speaker, where they have live interaction.
Okay.
So
well, my next book will be coming out in probably about a year, so maybe we can do this again.
Yes, sure. So we will have another session in the future as well. So we would stop. It is already 9:30 over here in the night. Let me ask Ms. Tejida AG, Head Department of Commerce and Aloysius College, to come over. Can you hear? Ms. Rajita? Okay. Okay, Fenita, can you come over and express the formal vote of thanks for our speaker?
Hello. Thank you, ma'am, for your fruitful information because it's very informative for us. And we are excited because of such a international speaker you are. And also, thank you once again. Thank you, sir, for this session, and also our principal and our HOD, Rachida ma'am, and special thanks to ma'am, Fenin ma'am. That's all. Thank you.
My pleasure.
So we may formally end this session here. Dr. Charkojos, sir, do you have something to speak?
No, I hope our students benefited immensely from your talk. So I would like to thank Ms. Fenn from the part of the college for sparing your valuable time to interact with our students. And we do look forward to more events like this. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, so we formally end this session here. Once again, thank you so much for your time. And I contacted you 2 months back, and you were talking about, okay, we will organize this in the first week of October. And as you said, you were willing to come over online and interact with us. And I look forward for such interactions in the future as well. And I hope you would also benefit the perspective from Indian side and how we think in India about China and the world economy. So,
Very good. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you. So we end this.